Hi. We talk aim. So when I think about aim, there are two main parts. The obvious part is moving your mouse to a specific spot and clicking. I call this raw aim. The second part is knowing where that specific spot should be. I call this prediction. If you are using a hit scan weapon, meaning that the shot is instantaneous and there is not a projectile, then the specific spot is exactly where your enemy is. If you are using a projectile weapon, then you have to identify where to shoot in order to hit. We can also consider splash damage, but let's set that aside for now. It is the combination of these two processes, raw aim, moving your mouse accurately, and prediction, identifying where to aim, that makes up the overall skill of aim. I find it important to break down aim into these two pieces because they are two separate sub-skills that may require different approaches to improve. For example, your mouse sensitivity would influence your raw aim but not help with your prediction. So know your problem to know your solution. On that note, a lingering question from Holocron number 1 is, what sensitivity should I use? Well, the short answer is whatever works best for you. Sensitivity is a super personal preference. However, there are some general ideas around the advantages and disadvantages to using a high versus low sensitivity. A high sensitivity moves fast, so this will feel good when flicking from side to side while strafing, doing 180s, or when doing flick shots, though they may not be so accurate. A low sensitivity moves slow, so this will make you feel very comfortable making minor adjustments and helps be consistent. Personally, I started with very high sensitivity and then lowered it over time. I found a lower sensitivity allowed me more consistency and control over my mouse movements. There are two extremes you can think about. 1. Minor adjustment to a precise shot. Does the physical movement required to make a minor adjustment feel large enough to be consistent? Or if you have a slight hand tremble or shiver, would you miss everything? Then lowering your slash sensitivity may be a good idea. 2. If you need to flick 180, can you do so comfortably? If you have issues here, then increasing your slash sensitivity may be a good idea. Your play space may also be a factor. Can't play super low sensitivity if that results in you banging your mouse against your keyboard or running off of your desk. So we are talking about high and low sensitivity, but what values do those really translate to? Well, that depends on who you ask. If you have been playing for a while, I would think of high and low as modulations on your current sensitivity. That is, I'm telling you what a higher sensitivity might give you and what a lower sensitivity might give you. It is probably prudent that we discuss specific values. I want to add the disclaimer that you should use what works for you. First, comparing slash sensitivity values directly is missing half the equation. The other part we must consider is your mouse DPI. Think of DPI as your mouse's built-in sensitivity. Most gamer mice have different DPI steps available. I personally use 800 DPI but have played with a variety in the past. DPI is linear, meaning that 800 DPI is twice as sensitive as 400 DPI. So slash sensitivity 2 at 800 DPI is the same as slash sensitivity 4 at 400 DPI. You have to take both the slash sensitivity and DPI into account to compare one player versus another. Now this is still a little convoluted, so there is a better way to summarize these two values together. cm/360. This means how many centimeters the mouse will need to move to complete a 360-degree turn. The lower your cm/360, the less your mouse has to move for a 360, meaning a low cm/360 is high sensitivity. So how do we calculate this? There are tools available. They just take in your game sensitivity and mouse DPI and spit out a cm/360. I am using 2.7 sensitivity and 800 DPI, which translate to a cm/360 of 19.2 centimeters. Recently, I was using 23.6 centimeters. As of February 2021. SIL 10.4 ENT 6.5 Duo 11.5 30.5 for Disruptor in Siege only. No one else replied, sad face. Here are what some pro/high level players in other games use. Typically faster games like Quake/Apex will result in higher sensitivity than slower games like CSGO/Valorant. You will find godlike players in all of those games playing on both high and low sensitivity. I know it's true in Quake. There really isn't any absolute rules to something like this, it really is preference. But now you at least have some random numbers from random people to compare against yourself. The other command that we should mention with sensitivity is CL_mousEcho. This basically results in your crosshair moving more the faster that you physically move your mouse. So if you were to move your mouse slowly from the middle of your mousepad to an edge, your crosshair would move less on the screen than if you were to quickly move the mouse the same physical IRL distance. It is a bit odd. The idea was to use a low sensitivity but then use some Excel so you can still react quickly to things around/behind you. I find it just created for uneven muscle memory. Made more sense when I was using a Dell ball mouse, which has some natural deacceleration. But for you, lost person who doesn't understand anything, you should probably just not use it. So now that I've told you to use what works for you 100 times and you decided to continue to use your 2 cm/360 sensitivity, let's move on. I will also say that FOV can have an impact on one's ability to aim well. A larger FOV lets you see more and have better awareness. A smaller FOV gets you visually closer to the targets. Find what works best for you. Getting back to talking about raw aim, there are a few aim training programs out there, such as Aim Lab and Covecase. I've only personally used Aim Lab and would say it's fine for like warm-up or basic practice. I enjoy this grid shot thing to just practice plain old shooting. There are also some fun tracking ones that I enjoy but not really JA relevant. However, nothing beats the real thing. Playing JA is always best. IMO. You, your mouse, and your crosshair need to be all in sync. One of the best things you can do to build this hand-eye brain coordination/muscle memory is to not mess with your settings. Find something comfortable and then allow yourself time to get used to it. So maybe as you can kinda gather, raw aim is really about laying a good foundation of settings, equipment, etc. and then practice/time. There's no hidden technique to moving your mouse. Let's look at the other side of aim, prediction. I remember playing on FFA2 as a very young Padawan. For some reason, we noob saberists had decided to do some pistol duels. And I kept missing and asked someone how does it work. And they said a few magic words. You have to lead your shots. I guess it's some automatic mental math. You are reading which direction the enemy is going. You are reading/estimating at what speed they are traveling. You are then comparing that against the distance you have to the target and the target's future positions. And then you have the speed of your projectile. When all that lines up right, you have some crosshair position where your projectile will hit the dude. Now there are a variety of situations we can think through. Let's take a basic case of some FK loser going up and down a jump pad. Here this is simple since there is just one direction of travel, up and down. There is even a little sort of pause at the top as the up/down changes, making it easy to set up a shot right after. Given how close we are, the shot hits very fast, we don't have to read all that far in the future. Take this situation where an enemy O is aggressively jumping toward FS on down twin. Now there is more complexity. Here, we have variable speed, height, and direction. The speed of the enemy is variable, as they will be accelerating in the air. The direction is a bit of a curve coming toward us, and at this point given their desired destination, it is likely going to stay on course. So while the direction type is complex, changing vertical height, curved approach, it is readable in the sense that the other player cannot, or is not, going to change it dramatically. Frankly, this is an odd approach vector that I'm not used to seeing. So I just wanted to illustrate a variety of situations so that we could think about the challenges of prediction. We can conclude that there are situations that are easy to predict and situations that are hard to predict. Take all that potential complexity and then let's scale it to 2 jumps. I don't have the perfect words, but we can maybe draw a line between reading versus estimating. You can read a player's movement after jumping, as in you know where they are heading. When it comes to multiple jumps, you are estimating. I can't know where someone is after 2 jumps, but I can guess. If you are spending your time actively thinking about the details of aiming, you are going to be wasting mental resources. However, if you are learning this or trying to improve, you'll need to be thinking about it. With time it will become automatic. More ideas about position, combat ability, tactics, etc. will be discussed at length in other videos. So I hope that all of that paints a picture of what I mean by prediction. I hope the ideas come across about easy versus hard to predict, about reading movements versus estimates. So your remaining question should be, how do I get better at prediction? And, as you probably expected, the answer is practice. If you are very new to the game, there is also a challenge of just not knowing the common patterns of movement. You haven't seen enough of the game to be able to imagine what will happen in the future. So just keep playing and this sense will build. One thing to remember with prediction is that failure is part of practice. If you continue to rely on the shots you can make, if you keep going for every splash and never going for a direct, you are never going to learn. You have to fail shots in order to learn to hit them. Once you have done this for a while, it can be helpful to watch other players. Everyone aims a little differently, and ping/input lag/mutants might be varying factors. However, seeing what shots they take or don't take, or how they found an area where I wouldn't, or even how they use weapons that I don't, a sales bowcaster, can be helpful. Sometimes you need to see a different way of things to shake up what you have learned yourself. For me, I did learn a lot by playing with 180 ping. It forced me to have to live into the future and to think about where people will be. High ping can also teach you bad habits, so it's a mix. Quake taught me a lot about lower sensitivity and being consistent with aim. You don't get to just push T and strafe your way to victory in real games. Also being able to aim in a dual environment with freeform movement made CTF with route-based movement feel easier. Okay, that's all folks. The goal of this video was to give you their mental framework to understand raw aim and prediction. With this conceptual understanding, I will be able to explain additional ideas in future videos.
See ya.
What's an aimbot?